The Mariners have answered their critics, and we're here to talk about it on today's episode. They say they can't hit, they hit. They say the bullpen is all out of whack. Well, the bullpen looks pretty damn good to me, and the starting pitching is looking like the starting pitching that we've anticipated. And listen, they still don't have Kirby or Logan Gilbert. Things are looking pretty peaches and cream right now. We're going to talk about it here on the newest episode of the Rye Bread and Mustard, that Down on the Docks on the Other Side of the Tracks 5-star podcast. It's about to start right after this. All right, Hannah, we're here on the late night tip. We've just wrapped up our stadium run here. I've, for one, in the last 2 weeks, been to Sacramento, been to Seattle, to San Diego, and then we just finished here up at the Dodgers Stadium. But you just joined me when we were down there in the Padres Stadium. What'd you think about that place, real quick?
Yeah, really nice ball yard. Nice sight lines. Each little area of the ballpark is kind of its own little theme, and each area you go to is its own little adventure. And I don't know how to really describe it, but there's just so many places you can go sit, which we kind of checked out before the game started, and there really wasn't a bad seat in the house. The only complaint I had is there's some kind of choke points when people are trying to enter certain areas from the outfield or leave. But I mean, that's minor stuff. Other than that, it's a beautiful park. Definitely recommend going and watching a game there. I mean, hard to believe that the first game we went to, it rained. Got some Seattle mist coming in. It wasn't too bad, but the Californians, they see that coming and they head for the hills, and back in behind everything. But didn't bother us at all, and they kept the game going. And then the third game that I went to, or the third game of the series that I went to, a beautiful San Diego day game. Lots of people watching both days. It's a real fun place to go see a ball game at. I got no complaints, and would like to go again sometime.
And then we went to Dodger Stadium as well.
Yeah, and that was cool.
Dodger Stadium. I mean, it's a jewel, but after being in T-Mobile Park in the last week and San Diego, you go there as far as everything, regarding your seating and all of that. So it's definitely, Back to the Future kind of situation. Like we're going back to the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, seen so many games there on TV, big games throughout my life, and then just to be there to sit in the stadium was cool. There'll be more big games. You consider them probably being a World Series favorite, but definitely in the playoffs this year. So I'm just glad to say I saw a game there. Really cool. I mean, remember watching an 88 Kirk Gibson put it into the right field bleachers, seeing Nomo pitch, seeing Fernando Valenzuela pitch, hearing Vince Scully on the mic. Just so many things have happened in Dodger history. And then to be able to sit there right down the left field line there near the foul pole and watch a game, I had a great time. We got to see Eugenio Suarez play, which was nice to see him play again. Seattle's Corbin Carroll, nice player. The whole weekend was great. I mean, I saw Tatis hit a home run. We saw the Dumper hit a home run, Rosarena. And then in this game, Betts hits a couple. Ohtani hits one. I mean, so
and
star power hits some home runs.
And we watched Julio hit that grand slam on my phone.
Yeah.
1 row off of the field. That was probably my favorite home run of the game. But yeah, it's it's been a fun time the last few weeks, especially this weekend. I mean, the Sacramento series was interesting. I made it to the New York series in Seattle, and then the Padres series. I'm ready to not be in a stadium for about a month, or having stadium food. Even the non-alcoholic beers are not cheap, so I'm trying not to look at what my expenses were. But yeah, I've been to 6 Mariners games and 1 Dodgers game in the last 13 days at the time of this recording. And let me tell you, I'm looking forward to watching games on MLB TV. I won't complain about the 2 commercials they play, or them cutting off the game right when the game ends and not starting it until the first pitch is about to happen. I'll stop all my bitching and moaning for a month because I'm ready just to relax. No, but it's been a fun time, and also just being around the Mariners on the road, and us sitting there on top of the dugout in all these series, and just seeing the mojo of this team. And that's what we're going to get into this episode here in just a second. The Mariners answering their critics. We've seen them overcome so many things and just keep steamrolling through, and just seeing them being able to bounce back after, a tough week the week before, after a couple of successful weeks going into that. You're starting to see like, hey, this is the team that they are. This is what they're made up of. And when you're in person and you're watching it that close, especially on the road, you can really buy into it much more than maybe just reading the numbers or what you're seeing on television.
Yeah, and seeing some of this Friar faithful down there giving the Mariners some props, talking about how good the club looked. And, there's seems like that last time that I've been to an away game, and the opposing fans are complimenting the Mariners. It's certainly a good feeling to be a part of, and to hear how complimentary they are of what they see out of our ball club. So it's exciting. So hopefully they keep it up.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do here on this episode, we are going to talk about 3 phases. Obviously, the offense, the starting pitching, and the bullpen. I mean, those are the 3 big components that make up baseball. And the Mariners have been criticized, or things have been skeptical on all of those fronts, and the Mariners have been answering those critics. That's what the theme of this episode is, and we're going to get into that right after this.
Get ready to play hardball in the Kingdom.
Take me to the ball game. I want to see the Ants. The Mariners are playing hardball. Did it again and again and again. Did it again.
Princess Tours, the vacation company, brings you the best show in baseball when the San Diego Chicken plays hardball with the Seattle Mariners and the Baltimore Orioles tonight in the Kingdom.
I think the conversation is, Hanno, just like the title of the episode, the Mariners keep answering their critics, and that includes us as critics.
Yeah, it was first time seeing the Mariners live this year. Very impressed watching their approach and how they're playing their game together. You can see they're a confident group. Every time they might, have a hiccup or get down 0-2 or whatever in the box, they come through. There was a point in the series in San Diego that really surprised me. Rosarena led off for the home run. The Mariners then continued to get 4 straight hits after not hitting anything through that first couple innings. They just look really good and confident. They're playing well. A big change from what we saw when they got swept back home, but that didn't faze the boys at all, and they look back and composed and ready to go after another win streak.
Yeah, and they continue that on here in Chicago. We are seeing the big 2-out so what come back. Dan Wilson, very familiar with that from being part of that team back in 1995. So they're always going to tie those things together. But we are seeing that, and we are continuing to see the bottom of the lineup contribute as well. Not every single game, but quite a bit of these games, you're getting to see the top of the lineup roll over. You saw it here in this Chicago game where Julio ends up getting the big grand slam. You also saw that, like you said, the 5 hits in a row in the San Diego series. That wasn't the top of the order. That was the end of the order, getting to the top of the order.
Yeah, it's really nice to see. I mean, and like you mentioned earlier in your opening, seeing the pitching jump back up to where we think it can be, getting great starts out of, two guys coming off the not the scrap heap, but from down in Tacoma, pitching well in that San Diego series, and then Wu going 6+ for his, every start so far this year. Big compliments to him. And then yeah, Castillo getting his start, looking good and sharp again. It's like the guys are starting to round into shape, and then the bullpen's been really good as well. So that's a nice start to see too, as well, on this road trip.
Yeah, and to just continue on our theme of this show where the Mariners continue to answer their critics, let's start right here, Hanno. Let's start with the starting pitching. Obviously, everybody thought this year and going into the season that is going to be the strong point. That is all the Mariners really have, including a lot of us when we looked at how they constructed this roster. We did say, hey, the only thing that the Mariners can really do to separate themselves from all of the drama and the shortcomings and the lies or the deception or whatever you want to call it, whatever kind of disappointment you want to call that with the front office and ownership, was what they could do on the field. And we're starting to see that. But going back to the pitching, let's just point at the starting pitching. You lose Kirby in spring training, you lose Logan Gilbert. You see Hitchcock come up in his, or Hancock, excuse me. You see Hancock come up in his very first start of the year and get his ass sent back down to Tacoma. And then you don't really have Bryce Miller back to who we expect him to be this entire season. Come to find out, he's been dealing with injuries and just not feeling right in general. Until this last week, I would say Wu was pretty much the only steady person. We had seen Castillo have his stretches of being steady. We have not seen anything steady out of Bryce Miller. We were trying to figure out who Logan Evans is, and we were seeing which Hancock was he going to sway towards that first start or what we've seen here. We have seen this gradual change in Hancock. We have seen Luis Castillo, after having a bad start, bounce back with a couple of good starts here. He's got his ERA in the low 3s. He's always giving you a chance to win. And then, like you just mentioned, Brian Wu, absolutely steady, 6+ innings in every single start. Now this pitching staff that seems to have come around is also going to get healthier with the return of George Kirby this week, and soon to follow after that, Logan Gilbert. And you're starting to look at this starting pitching and going, we're about to see what we expected. And we're also going to see maybe some competition there for that 5th and 6th spot.
Yeah, the Mariners have seemed to kind of weather the storm, which is really incredible. Not only losing 2/5 of their rotation, but now 3/5, with the expectation of getting a couple guys back here shortly, with Kirby, probably being the first guy in this next series down in Houston. So that's exciting. But yeah, the whole Hancock thing, he's improved ever since that first start, and then getting sent down and brought back up. He's been more assertive. He's attacked. He hasn't kind of, just like that first time against Detroit where he kind of nitpicked and nibbled and stuff and just didn't really go after the hitters like we expected. He's totally changed his game plan and his game structure around when going after hitters. And then Evans, it's been nice to see the evolution of him, a guy that came out and has, throws a bunch of different kind of curveballs like that, dominant with him, but didn't really trust his fastball, couldn't really spot it. And that's key for these young pitchers. You got to throw that fastball and be able to spot it. And he's looked like he's been able to do that more with continuing to throw that off-speed pitch and then fool these hitters. He looked outstanding in San Diego to me.
Yeah, let's just start with Hancock, like you mentioned right there. You go and you look at his line right now, 1-2 with a 6.21 ERA and a 7-game start. But besides 2 of those starts, he's looked great. You saw Dan Wilson go out and have to shut him down. I think there are things about him still that you have to, I would guess he still has to earn some of that trust to go deep into the games for Dan Wilson. And I could see why. But yes, after that first start, he has been pretty decent. He's given you a chance to win. And out of 7 starts, he's given you a chance to win for, let's say, maybe 5 times.
Yeah, you've seen, the evolution of these guys. You can see them be really dominant and, feel very confident of them as they go through the first couple times through the lineup. It's that third time getting through the lineup. They always mention on the broadcast, and it's something we've noticed with these young pitchers, how the hitters then adapt to what they've been throwing them and how they've been attacking against them. They've been getting better at trying to, get through that third time through the lineup. That's usually the last thing kind of for these pitchers to really master, to be able to, change their game plan up and their approach of attacking these hitters that third time through. And we've seen these pitchers get hit around a little bit, and they're getting a lot better at it. And that's key, seeing the pitchers go deeper into games. We know what Wu does with that, getting his 6+ innings in every time. That's just the next step for these two young pitchers.
Yeah, and Logan Evans, it's his first time up in the big leagues. I mean, this guy just got drafted 2 years ago during the All-Star game there in Seattle. What we've seen out of him so far has been great. He had the one hiccup there in a game where he had the one big inning. Turns out, I believe that they made a scoring change and knocked some of the ERA off of him. But in this last start in San Diego, you're pitching against a ferocious lineup like the San Diego Padres. This was easily his best start of his career. But if we just want to pull up his numbers really quick and make a case for him staying around, you are looking at somebody that's in 4 starts, 2-1, 2.57 ERA, 14 strikeouts in 21 innings, and absolutely had the Padres guessing the entire time here in this in his last start. We'll see what he looks like this week, but I would assume he's going to be starting when against the Chicago White Sox again.
Yeah, we just hopefully see another repeat performance from what he had in San Diego. It's really nice to see. I mean, the Mariner pitching was just absolutely phenomenal down there in San Diego. I mean, only giving up 3 runs the whole series. He was a big part of it. You could see him, fooling those guys, keeping Manny Machado, a big player up in the box, off balance. It was just a really nice to see. You've seen him grow with his pitching style. And like I mentioned, he's able to now throw his fastball for a strike. It looks like at a better clip, and that's helping him out as well, with also throwing that, off-speed stuff that is his bread and butter of a pitch.
Yeah, and we've also seen, like we were mentioning, Luis Castillo. We're getting what we expect out of this guy, right? Like I said, it seems to have a bad start, a so-so start, and then he seems to have 2 good starts every 4 starts. That seems to be kind of like his evolution of what he does every month.
Yeah, and it seems like, from what I remember, he's clamped down even more on his starts. He hasn't been giving up that, home run in the middle innings or what have you, or that 2-run shot. I feel like he's really kept the opposing team off the scoreboard here lately, and pitched really well and gone deep into games for him his last few starts.
Yeah, I mean, we were joking around that, I don't know, Luis Castillo, if you don't get to him early, right away, typically, he does pretty good, it seems like. And it seems like once he gets settled in, like most good veterans do, he's fine. And we were like, I wonder if they could just bring back the starter that they used to do. I don't know, throw somebody out there and just get through the first inning for the Mariners and then let Castillo start the second inning. Obviously, that's crazy talk, but you're right. He has controlled all that. This last game here in Chicago, he pitched into the 7th inning. So he wasn't having too many of those big, long at bats with the 3-2 counts and stuff like that. It seems to be much more tactful with what he's doing here in this last start. 0 bases on balls, 5 strikeouts, 7 innings.
Yeah, take that every time from him. Yeah, and like you mentioned, it seems like that if they get to him early, if they get to him at all, it's usually early, or he might, regress a little bit and give a cookie down Broadway and they'll hit one out on him. But I mean, he's really ramped up his game quite a bit here lately, and nice to see that, goose egg thrown out against the White Sox here in his last start.
Yeah, his last 7 games, 3-2, 3.66. You'll take that. Is he the ace number 1 pitcher on the staff? I don't think so. I think Wu is right now. Well, that'll be something to talk about when you get Logan Gilbert back and Kirby back. But speaking of that, it kind of does bring up the talk of what are you going to do? At one point, you're going to have 7 starters. When Bryce Miller returns from his injury, Logan Gilbert's back, George Kirby's back, and then you've seen what Logan Evans has done, and you're seeing Hancock start to put it together, and then you add Castillo and you add Wu. I mean, what are you doing here?
Well, it's a good problem to have. I mean, we were really concerned early on with these guys and what they're going to be able to do for us. Each of them has been able to, grind out innings and grind out games and give us a chance to, possibly win each time out for the most part in all of their starts. Since, we've had these guys go down, and that's all you can ask for, in these second tier guys that are coming in. They're helping you and giving you a chance to win the ball game. And the Mariners have won a lot more than they've lost. So it's really nice to see that these guys have come in, done their job, and just kind of picked up where the other guys left off.
Okay, I get all of that, but what do you do? Let's just say everybody comes back and everybody's healthy. I mean, what kind of conversations are happening? Are you going to a 6-man rotation? Are you moving one of them to the bullpen? Are you sending Hancock or Bryce Miller or Logan Evans back to the minors? Are you starting to put on the table, well, if all the rest of these guys are pitching elite, then you kind of look at like who's making the money, and the only person really making any serious money is Luis Castillo. Has a no trade clause, but at the end of this, after this season, he doesn't. Is that something that you're looking into? Or again, in this scenario, everybody's healthy and everybody's continuing to do what they do as far as pitching?
Yeah, I mean, once we get these guys back, knock on wood, hopefully they're able to just pick up and continue on with the season. They don't have any type of setbacks, so you're going to need somebody in case there is some setbacks with these guys. The Mariners have been quite lucky health-wise. We're not quite sure with Bryce Miller. Sure, he says it's only going to be, this little IL stint and he should be fine, but who really knows once he's, shut down and gets back and ramped up again. But to me, you've liked what you've seen to all these guys. Logan Evans for sure. He would be my first guy probably sent down. I think Hancock is more than, to me, outpitched him and been the better of the two so far, and probably has a little bit more experience. I'd like to see Logan try to, dial in his pitches in the minors. Like he hasn't pitched that much in pro ball yet. So that's kind of my thinking. But either way, you could go with either one of those and probably be okay. But if your main 5 that you started the season with, which includes Kirby, if he would have been okay, I think you go with those guys and just keep those other guys down in the minors for, support and options if guys aren't feeling well.
Here's how I kind of feel about it. I guess right now, I would say if I was Logan Evans and Hancock, I'm continuing to really, stick my heels in and just really try to grind out some of the best starts that you possibly can. And I would definitely be licking my chops just if I was Logan Evans and Hancock on the way that Bryce Miller has pitched versus how they've pitched. Because if you just say who's pitched better out of those 3, it's definitely not Bryce Miller. Now, Bryce Miller, going off what you're saying about Logan Evans, where you're like, you've only seen a small sample size of him. You've seen a little bit more out of Hancock, especially from last year and stuff. And you kind of know who he is. There's more of a trust there. And with Bryce Miller, yeah, we really don't know what the severity of the injuries are or just the mentality of what's going on with him. It could be upstairs as well. We've heard some rumblings about that. So I guess at this point, with that spot, I feel like you're right. Somebody's going to have to go down. Again, though, Bryce Miller's never been sent back down. So you do have options there. So that's going to be interesting for me to see as far as that. I don't think you're going to see, at least for until the trade deadline, what you're going to do with Luis Castillo. He does have that no trade clause. I don't want to see him go anywhere. But if all these other pitchers continue to move forward and you do find that trust, then that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I guess so. I think that's the type of guy, if you're looking to really win the division here this year and solidify your spot in the playoffs, he's a type of guy we've seen lately with all of his starts, and we've seen him previous in big games. He's a big game pitcher, so giving up on him at this time, sure, maybe you might be able to get something that you wouldn't get, later on. This might be the perfect time to trade him, but I think if you want to actually, convincingly gives yourself the best chance to win the division, I think you got to roll with him in your rotation right now.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100% with that. I guess I'm just saying, like, that's the only way that gets on the table is if all the rest of these guys come back and remain healthy and continue this growth. And that includes Bryce Miller. I think if Bryce Miller ends up being injured or this doesn't work out, then Luis Castillo is so much more valuable. And you are right. He's a big game pitcher. He also has that no trade clause. And then if you do have to move him because you're the Seattle Mariners, which I also feel like that's the only conversation. That's the only reason I would even have that on this table. If you're another team, you just go out and get who you want and add into this, but that's not how the Mariners are. And so that's even sad to think about. Hey, do we want this leader in our rotation? Yeah, he's not the number one ace right now, but he's like 1B, right? Or 2A. And he's somebody that you can trust and has built that trust with you by going out there and starting over 30 games. This is what he does throughout his entire career. And you're right. In the big games, he takes care of business. He just did this in Chicago. They're coming off of a long a long weekend in San Diego, long flight, barely any sleep. The bats aren't working early, and he keeps them in that game, goes through 7 innings. And guess what? One of my favorite things I saw in that game, when Julio hits that grand slam, guess who was waiting for him at the top of the step with the Triton? Luis Castillo.
Yeah, really nice to see.
So that's something that we're gonna, continue to watch. As far as Logan Evans, one last thing about him is you have seen that he doesn't seem to be shaken by anything. And I feel like he's in that confident area that maybe Bryce Miller was in at one point. When you come up and things are kind of falling your way and you're kind of just going with the pitches that you've always gone with, you haven't had to make any adjustments. So I feel like right now, as far as Logan Evans, I'd like to see what happens here in the next 3 weeks. I would assume he's probably going to be up for 2 or 3 more starts at least, right?
Yeah, I would imagine so. Things and not lose too much time, but time will tell on that one.
All right. Well, let's talk about a little bit more pitching, but not as far as the starters. Let's talk about the bullpen because that has been an area that we have seen quite a bit of improvement here. We'll talk about that right after this.
Fry Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast.
We have the one and only Mr. Tom Hutler, do you have any of your favorite stories from the Kingdom?
There was a time we had an earthquake, and so they were going to evacuate the building. So I was like getting up to go leave, and they go, "No, you can't go. You got to read these safety things." It's like,
do we need to tell them that there's smoking's only on the exterior ramps?
yeah. And Dave came shooting past. He signed off. I'm going, wait, I'm the only one here.
Listen and subscribe to Rye Bread and Mustard, Emeritus Podcast, wherever you get your podcast.
So the bullpen minus Andres Munoz, Hannah, excuse me. We've been waiting for some sort of identity. That was kind of the talk of this. We already saw earlier in the year some injuries. Santos, we didn't see Brash for a while. Brash comes back. He still needed some time to ease into things. We've seen Taylor take a significant step back. We've seen Snyder be good, but also kind of shaky. We've also seen the emergence of Vargas and Casey. How do I say his? Legamina. And we've also seen Bizzardo kind of take a step forward. We're still waiting on a couple other pieces that are coming together. But in the last week to 2 weeks, you're definitely starting to see the bullpen form an identity, and it's a positive one. And it's been an effective one, and it's kept them in these games and has been a big part of a lot of the victories. And even in the New York series, sure, you got beat by a former MVP and Paul Goldschmidt and just a great, veteran coming up and big pinch hit home run. And then you see Aaron Judge, he gets you. But besides that, the bullpen hasn't had many blemishes here.
No, you mentioned where Judge got Vargas in that Yankee series. Before then, they threw him, that one victory they had against the Yankees in a key situation. And they've had to because Thornton's been out with his appendicitis, a guy that Dan Wilson relies on a lot of times, probably more than I would appreciate him to do so. But he has been one of those guys. But Vargas has been thrown in the fire, and he's succeeded. Other than that one blemish, like we mentioned, against Judge, he's been thrown in the fire, and he's come out very successful and in key situations and shut them down. So that's been really nice to see. It's been huge seeing all these guys step in at different times in the bullpen and be able to come through. And you mentioned Snyder, he's been good at times, been thrown in there in some leverage situations. And then, what's his name?
Legamina?
Yeah, that's his name.
I used to call him John Leguizamo. So
yeah.
We're getting close.
Anyway, he gets thrown in there in that San Diego series in a crucial spot and late in the game, just when you need a hold. And he came through and made it look easy. So just another guy you feel really good about them going to.
Yeah, Vargas, I want to talk about him. We saw what happened in the New York series. I mean, are you going to get mad at anybody that, Judge does that to? And the only person I kind of place more of the blame is maybe the manager, Dan Wilson. Why would you even pitch to the guy? But that's last week's problem. In San Diego, we saw him get into an inning. It was a close game. He gets a couple of guys on base. You don't want to go. Yeah, that was game two of that series where he gets a couple of guys on base. Pete Woodward comes out there, talks to him, gets himself out of that jam. And that's the kind of growth that you're seeing, especially coming off of maybe the last time you pitched was what happened in New York. You get into that situation and, that's something that could be definitely pivoting for him of going, you put a couple of those appearances together, maybe you spiral down the other way, but you don't. You battle back, you get yourself out of that and you get your confidence back up.
Yeah, that definitely helps you get win streaks going and turning around, playing some bad ball, you get some breaks, you hit with runners in scoring position, you hold teams when they throw runners in scoring position, and you put up zeros, what the Mariners did this whole last weekend throughout the series. Like you mentioned, the starting pitching did well, and then the bullpen came down and just locked everything down. And it's nice to see, and that's what's helped continue and propel this team to wins in the W column.
Yeah, and Legamina, man, he's the guy. It seems like this is the guy where you've never heard anything about him. At least I haven't. This is the guy for 2025. We've seen it be different guys in every year. Seems like this is the dude.
Yeah, it's the type of guy where I figure or I forget about him in the bullpen of a bullet for the Mariners to use, and they throw him out there, and I'm like, oh, who's that guy again? And then, they mention who he is, and he goes out about it and does his business, and makes it look quite easy here recently. So just another strong arm playing really good for the Mariners coming out of that pen.
Yeah, and the Vargas game, I believe that was on the Sunday game. But Brash, let's talk about Matt Brash. Matt Brash still a 0 ERA. We seen him have maybe one appearance, and I believe that was in Oakland, where things just seemed to be off. But Dan Wilson knew to go get him. We've listened to him talk about how he's feeling. Says the elbow and the arm are fine. Still, he feels like he's still coming out of spring training where he feels like he's at right now. We've seen him make 5 appearances. And like I said, hasn't given up any runs, 4.2 innings, 6 walks. But in this last game here in San Diego, he looks great. He also pitched here in the Chicago game. What are you seeing out of Matt Brash?
I don't know, just like you mentioned, what I'm seeing is I wish he was more tuned up and ready to go. Because you mentioned that hiccup he had in Oakland, but other than that, they're throwing him only every other day because they ran him so hard and they need to protect him. He saw that last year that they didn't really protect him, and he ended up having Tommy John surgery. But he's looked fantastic as long as he keeps getting ramped up. He's just a weapon that you hope to see out more and more, not this every other day. But I like what they're doing, taking caution with him, giving him a chance to get his rest and not run him so hard just out of the gates here. But once he's able to, he's going to be a valuable weapon. I mean, we've seen it early. He's been absolutely dominant in some of his starts. Just being that lockdown 1, 2, 3, get the ball onto Munoz in the 9th, get the Mariners out of a jam. Just that leverage position where you need someone to lock him down for an inning. He's been that guy, and we need him to be that guy. We saw last year when we didn't have that type of player once he went down. He's a big factor for us and will continue to be. He's looked great.
Yeah, the bullpen right now compared to last year's bullpen and where it ended up, it's night and day. Mariners bullpen, like we said, definitely was looking for their identity there in the first month, but we've started to see that here in the month of May. Again, answering those critics, the Mariners are doing that. You also see Spire as well. Probably need another left-hander possibly coming out of the bullpen, but Spire has been pretty damn good, and this is the Spire that we saw in 2023 that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, there's not one thing you can really complain about Spire this year. Came back, throwing the ball harder. You're right. He's been a guy that's been put right into these leverage situations and has come through time after time. Pitched really well for us. Hopefully that continues. And that's just giving us the success that we've seen out of our bullpen and as a team as a whole, in being able to lock down these teams to get runners on, and get us into the offensive position where we can hopefully get some runs across and just enough. And we have been doing that. It all works together, and it has worked together real nicely so far in the first 40 games here for the Mariners.
Yeah, and it just hasn't been just for left-handers. He's not just coming in for left-handers. We've seen him, Dan Wilson, go to him where he's just facing maybe the best hitters in the lineup right there in that situation. You've seen him in the 6th inning. You've seen him in the 7th. You've seen him in the 8th. You've seen him pitch multiple days back-to-back. He's kind of getting those Matt Brash style reps right now that we were accustomed to seeing Matt Brash do in the past. But him and Matt Brash can kind of be that yin and that yang right now for the setup guy for Munoz, considering, it depends on who's going to be in the lineup at that particular time, of course, that you're going to be facing. But you can see that Dan Wilson and Pete Woodworth definitely have the confidence in Spire, just like they do in Brash.
Yeah, they sure do.
Another person that we talked about, Bizardo, maybe somebody we might not see, possibly maybe him and Troy Taylor when you get the other two guys back. But I did want to commend him on what a growth, because he was just the human white flag, up 5 or down 5. Still is that guy, but we saw him in San Diego come out there, get himself in a little bit of trouble with that big lead, and Woodworth goes out there and talks to him, and he and it was very important. Made sure Munoz didn't go into that game. You did have to see Munoz go in and get one out in the first game in Chicago, but still, that was very important. Munoz comes in that game. Who knows if things unravel in Chicago? Probably not. But you did see him not crumble. That could have just been him last year. Just let's go back to him last year. He's in that situation. A lot of time, he's probably going to give up a couple of runs.
Yeah, I mean, you saw him in San Diego, like you mentioned, wasn't finding the strike zone, walked a few guys. The pitching coach came out, talked to him. I don't know if it was a mechanical thing or what, but then he was able to settle back in. And like you mentioned, finish off the job. I mean, that's a hard position to go into when you're up that many, but you need those type of pitchers and players in your bullpen to be able to get those slack innings and just get the job done, so you don't have to go to your leverage guys and your closer and stuff like that. And he was able to keep that be the case in that San Diego series. It's hard to do, but yeah, he was able to throw strikes and get those guys out and not have to use another guy out of the pen. And then on the other hand, you mentioned Troy Taylor. He's been thrown in that role a few times this year, has not come through at all. He's just not the same guy that we saw last year. It's unfortunate, but he's just kind of been that guy that hasn't been successful in the way we thought he would be after what he showed last year for us.
Yeah, for sure. But overall, the Mariners bullpen is answering the critics, and it obviously goes hand in hand with the starting pitching. We have seen the starting pitching get a little bit later into games lately, and that's definitely shortened things up for the bullpen. You can see when the bullpen only has to pitch 7, 8, 9, how effective this bullpen is.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to be able to set up your bullpen each time. Like the Mariners like to. They've been doing it for years, getting the starters to go long and then setting up with the guys they want in those 3 innings to finish them off. And it's a recipe for success, and it's something they look to continue to do. It's been worked for many years now here for the Mariner team.
Yeah, and they're being able to set themselves up for success because the offense is putting them in these positions, versus the last couple of years, it was chaos ball all the time. Hard to plan the bullpen setups. I mean, you might have a plan. Hard to execute that plan to victory when your team is having to, scrape together a run or two at the end of the game, or just having these crazy chaos ball situations, making these comebacks, and then you've already kind of burnt through people, and it doesn't work out. But the offense has definitely helped that out.
Yeah, the offense has been, if not just good enough, really good at times, better than what we expected. And the way they've come through, late in the games, and they've just needed that extra run. They didn't need it so much in this last weekend series. They had some leads for the most part. They were close games, but had some leads. But then you see, like you did in this first game of the Chicago series, where they were able to add on with that big grand slam by Julio, and that's huge to make things even easier for him. It's just a nice recipe that this team's been able to do, is add on late, and even to extend leads. It's nice to see.
Yeah, the putting together the smart at bats late in the game is what we're seeing. We saw that in game 1 in the Chicago series. Julio doesn't get that grand slam if these guys don't get on base, obviously. It's a 1-0 game at that point. Munoz is up. He's going to have to come in and do a close save opportunity. Mariners hold on to the lead there in the 8th. So they don't use Matt Brash. They use Colin Snyder. That's who sat down in that game. And then, yeah, Munoz did have to come in and clean up one inning, but it was a much more comfortable situation there, being up 4 or 5 runs after that grand slam. You go back to Sunday's game in San Diego. We were down there very close. Right. Where were we? Right in the on deck circle, watching the entire thing, watching just them get up there and with this belief and this confidence there in the 8th inning, being up 1 or 2 runs at that point, right? And then they get the big hit. You saw them get the big hit the night before as well, with Demo coming in off the bench. And then you go back to Friday, they just go out and they score 5 runs with the long ball. They're also doing it with these key moments late in the games, and you are seeing a lot of those multiple hits coming with 2 outs. And again, Mariners answering all their critics of, can they sustainably do this? Well, they've been doing it for a month now.
Yeah, it's really nice to see, like them stringing together hits, getting the big hit, playing well defensively at certain points of the game to save you a run. They're doing everything exactly right at the right time, playing stress-free. You mentioned, we were very close, and, I call them the owner's seats that you got for us. They were great. And to be able to watch the guys up close, prepare for their at-bats, watch them, how they're taking pitches, and seeing the game really differently so far up close. It was just like I mentioned earlier, it was the first time I've seen the Mariners play this year, and it's obvious to me just watching them and their mannerisms how confident they feel. Confidence is a great thing in baseball, and they're playing with a lot of it right now.
Yeah. And I mean, you take away the first, week and a half, 2 weeks of the season, and you just go off of what they've done here in the last month. Once everybody started to find their positions, especially with the big injury to Robles. That's something that we're talking less and less about. Can't wait to have him back, but that's not something we're always talking about. Luke Raley goes down. That could have been huge as well. But then you see the emergence of what Rowdy Tellez has done here in the last few weeks. And that makes that a whole lot better to have somebody step up, especially on the left-handed side, for what you think Luke Raley would bring as well.
Yeah, all these guys have been key contributors. You need these guys. I mean, we talked about earlier, the homestand where the Mariners, kicked those first 3, got swept coming, right off the road trip at home versus Toronto playing a really good Yankee team, fighting with them every game, but only getting 1 out of 3. And then going right back on the road and playing the second best team in the National League in the Padres and sweeping them. The mindset looks like it's changed, how they just totally turned around and just played their game and didn't worry about losing 3 in a row. They came back down here and won 3 in a row to kind of just wipe out that tough, homestand to start with. And then got going here in Chicago. That's not something we've seen from this team in years past, being able to flip the script so much and so quickly after having a tough homestand, going right out on the road and then taking care of business against a good team. And then having to travel, like you mentioned, not get much sleep and play a dog in the White Sox and be able to get that first one right out of the gate.
Yeah. And the way I also want to bring this up, the way that Dan Wilson has been managing, some people, you get on whatever Twitter, what's the grumpy guy from Locked On, Colby, whatever, Patnode or whatever. And he has a good point. You'll see things like, why would you pinch hit Solano for Rowdy or whatever? And I get it. And I understand that type of thinking. But the thing is, Dan Wilson is still putting people in the game where they should be. Like Solano should be pinch hitting there. Sure, if you go look at his stats or whatever, but that's his job, right? To be that right-handed pinch hitter in the middle of the game when they switch to left-handed. And guess what? He's going to keep doing that. And if Solano keeps failing, I think it's gives a bigger picture of why you might have to DFA him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that that Colby guy is crazy for saying that. I'm just using that as an example of why Dan Wilson is doing things like that with, let's just say, like Solano, who isn't providing anything. I think maybe that 10 pitch at bat we saw and a walk this week or last week was maybe the best thing that we've seen out of him. But again, you got to hope he's going to snap out of it. And if not, then you can turn to management, turn to the front office and go, look, we've tried and tried and tried and tried. We have to make a move. But you can't just make a knee-jerk reaction. It doesn't do anything good just to have him sit there rotting on the bench and not knowing. That's my opinion on it.
No, I get what you're saying. You're saying, in the best of all worlds, you're right. You're putting him in there in a position where he's supposed to be, where you hope for him to succeed. He hasn't been, but you keep putting him out there just to see if hopefully he can turn it around. And if he can't, then it gives a big, red flashing light to ownership and the baseball ops saying, hey, we tried this. It's not working. It looks like something that we could improve on, at the deadline, in-house with what we have down in Tacoma, a lot of different options because we're here to win. And, if you're not helping us, unfortunately, we've given you the chances and we thought you could, but it doesn't always work out and we're ready to move on. So I see your point, what you're saying. He's put in the right-hand spot. It might not sound right because of how he's produced, but you got to keep doing it to prove a point one way or the other, either getting him out of his slump or him continuing to slump and getting him out and losing his job because of it.
Yeah, and we saw this happen to Mitch Garver last year, right? And then it seemed like just remained on the team because he was making all of that money. Where with somebody like Solano, what's he making, $3 million this year? We're probably, by the time you get rid of him, you're probably going to be paying him less than $2 million to go away to bring in some production right there if he doesn't do it. But speaking of Mitch Garver, we've seen Dan Wilson go to Mitch Garver in these situations. He's had to pinch hit for Polanco because of the oblique thing, and Polanco's not hitting on the right side. But we've seen Mitch Garver be more successful this year. We haven't seen, maybe there was more pop and power when he did do things last year. But as far as the swing and the miss and not putting the ball in play, we've seen that definitely go away. And maybe we are going to see, a change in Mitch Garver. He seems like he just seems like his whole aura of just being around the team is much better than it looked last year.
Yeah, I mean, and like we talked about earlier with confidence, you can see that in him as well. I mean, success breeds confidence. He's had some success this year, and that's been something that we're the type of team we need every guy to row in the same direction and be able to help us out at certain points when they're called upon, and he's done that, and that's helped this team continue to be in first place. They're not a team that's going to run away with her. We have these boppers that can pull us out of games. Sure, we have a couple here and there that can carry the team here and there, but as we've seen with our wins this year, it's not the same guy or the big names always doing it. It's other guys helping us out. I mentioned in the series the defensive play. Luis Rivas looked great, made some great stabs at second base, some nice plays. That stuff helps, shuts down big innings and stuff like that. So it takes all these guys on this team, and all of them have contributed in a certain way, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, and just one more quick thing about Mitch Garver. That Sunday game gets the big hit down the line. Gives us a run, an important run there, some insurance. You see him in the game 1 of the Chicago series, was in Polo's spot before Julio in the lineup, gets the single, keeps the ball moving, didn't get into a double play. That's kind of like the thing that he would do last year.
Backup catcher.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, Harry Ford's been doing okay and playing well down there, but I don't know. I think it's too early to tell on him, but I mean, if he's pushing down there, that's good, competition for Garver, and he probably sees that possibly, but I think we're still a ways off on Harry Ford.
Yeah, I don't try to get too crazy about all of these. Oh, I don't try to. I shouldn't say it shouldn't be that easy. I don't give I can't say I wouldn't give a fuck, but I take any minor league offensive stats, pretty much any stats with the largest, not with a grain of salt, with just a handful of salt, because it's like spring training numbers. You know, people will be like, Dom Canzone's dropping bombs left and right. Harry Ford's doing this. You know, if he doesn't play catcher, are we going to bring him up? And blah 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 blah. The jump is it's so huge.
Yeah, I just think with this year, with Garber having so much trouble last year, and then this year coming in with a new mindset, and looking to make some changes and being successful, and him being on the last year of his contract, you know, Harry Ford playing in his first full year of AAA. I just feel like this might just be a year where they're going to let both guys play their, you know, contract out and, you know, get their bats in AAA, a new level, see how he does on that, and then make maybe that decision next year. That's how I think that might go.
Yeah, and Mitch Garver's role has been limited, or his responsibility has been limited compared to what it was last year. Your ask of what you need from him is less than it is last year. And as far as this year, he's not hurting you. He doesn't hurt you.
No, calls a good game, receives the ball pretty well. You know, he's kind of been the guy for Castillo. We saw him catch Wu, and he's done a great job. Balls don't get by him. He handles the pitchers good, like I mentioned. And then he's doing more what you kind of expected of him. You know, he's able to hit when he's, you know, in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think we pretty much have it covered here, that every facet of the game, whether it's the coaching, whether it is the bullpen, whether it is the pitching, the starting pitching, or the offense, that all had these doubts. And at some point in this season, had everybody freaking out. But here in the last 3 to 4 weeks, we've seen all of that even out. And they're winning games every single way, whether it's the blowout, the come from behind, the hold-ons. They're doing it every way they possibly can. We saw them have a tough week when they returned into Seattle with the Toronto and the New York. And as right now, as the recording, as we're doing this, they've pretty much erased all that negative stuff. And you're right back where you were when you were coming off of those big wins in Sacramento, headed back home. So everything looks good. We were looking at that patch of games with the Yankees, Toronto, the Yankees, and the Padres, and the Mariners. What ended up going 4-6. We said somewhere around 500. You want to get through that, go into Chicago and take care of business, and then you got 4 big games with the Houston Astros down in Houston, and that's what's going to be a pivoting thing for, I believe, the division right there. Is after we see this Houston series, we're either going to see how close it's going to be between Houston and Seattle. I think you're finally getting a really good look at what these two teams finally are versus the first time they played.
Yeah, I mean, that's a key for whenever we watch the Mariners. When you see them, you know, stumble, hit a bump in the road, you know, and we're like, oh, here we go again. You know, they started that homestand off with 3 or 4, you know, swept 4 straight losses, get a win. And then, yeah, you mentioned those 9 games to then turn out 4-5 after losing the first 4. Quite a turnaround, and it was really nice to see. You know, we thought that could be a dip. There will be more dips. We just don't know how big the dips will be, and this was just a little dip at home, and we've turned it right around and, you know, played a great team in the National League to get that sweep, and then started off, like we mentioned, getting that first victory against Chicago, knowing that would be a tough one going into the first game there. If we handle that business, you know, this is a team that we feel that can have the confidence that they've shown us to be able to have the confidence in them by the way they've played, and it's exciting.
Supercross this weekend in the Kingdom. The Coors Beer Supercross doubleheader. Get ready, Seattle, this Saturday night at 7:30 and Sunday afternoon at 2. The 1988 AMA Supercross Tour, Motorcycle Mania, on an incredible dirt battleground that treats man and machine the same way. With absolutely no respect. See the best. National champion Jeff Ward, former champion Ricky Johnson. Tickets at all Ticketmaster locations, including the Bond, Tower Records and Video, and participating Honda dealers. The Coors Beer Supercross.
All right, that is pretty much our episode for today. You know, I think we've hammered home the Mariners are answering their critics. Hopefully, I know they can continue to answer their critics. And again, if you like what we're doing, please don't be afraid to like and subscribe, especially on the YouTube side. Also, if you want to hit us up on social media, you know, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, Facebook. Shoot something at us. We'll get back to you. Again, thank you for liking and subscribing. If you, want that street cred for rocking the rye bread, you want that rye bread and mustard gear, hit up at simply.cora. That's at simply.cora. Also, if you want some licensed MLB, NBA, WNBA, NFL, NHL, all the major leagues that you want to support, particular players or things that are going on, go to intheclutch.com. All the money goes to the players. It skips around Fanatics and all of that. This is licensed stuff. Intheclutch.com. Also, use that code rye bread and mustard, all one word. Save yourself some money. All right. With that being said, Hanno, you know what time it is. Ciao.